Thank you, Chair Khan and Assistant Attorney General Kanter, for the opportunity to speak today. It's an honor to be here. I'm a worker in the entertainment industry. I'm a writer and a board member of the Writers Guild of America West, a labor union that represents over 11,000 writers who work in TV, film, news, and streaming video. I'm also an actor and a comedian, and I'm here today to talk to you about the most hilarious subject of all, corporate media mergers. I'm here in part because the show I created, Adam Ruins Everything, was killed by a corporate merger, specifically by AT&T's acquisition of Time Warner. Waves of merger in this industry, approved by regulators or the courts, have put a handful of companies in control of what stories writers are allowed to tell and what viewers are allowed to watch, and done tremendous harm to the everyday workers whose labor powers the entertainment industry. In 2015, I created an investigative comedy show for the cable network truTV. It ran for 3 seasons and 65 episodes. It was the second biggest show on the network and was described as a breakout hit by the network president. But in 2018, AT&T acquired Time Warner, truTV's parent company. And then, as so often happens after mergers, AT&T announced a major reorganization. Now, we all know that that's boss code for layoffs, but this time it was code for basically shut down the entire network. Roughly 100 truTV employees were fired, including the head of the network and the entire programming department, and AT&T then started canceling shows to cut costs. A month after our season finale aired, I got a call from the new boss at AT&T saying that they were canceling the show despite its success. And today, what was once a thriving TV network that employed thousands of artists now airs archival reruns of a single reality show over and over again. 3 years after that merger turned out to be a financial disaster, Warner Media merged again, this time with Discovery. And just yesterday, 2 weeks after that merger closed, that new entity announced that they were ending all scripted television production at TNT and TBS, 2 networks that have been leading the way in cable scripted programming for over 30 years. I received texts all day from friends whose shows had suddenly been canceled in the middle of shooting. Now, why would a healthy television network with hit shows watched in millions of households voluntarily commit suicide? Well, the executives of the new megacorp proudly state in the press that the only reason these cuts were made was the merger. Now, in decades past, when a show was canceled, the writer in the studio could take it to another network. And that's because until recently, the networks that broadcast the content competed to buy content from the studios, and the studios in turn competed for the services of writers, directors, and other artists, all to bring the best ideas to the public. But after 2 years of vertical and horizontal mergers, today, the network that broadcasts your show also owns the studio that makes it, the IP that it's based on, and the cable infrastructure that brings it to your house. Just six companies now control the production and distribution of almost all entertainment content available to the American public in theaters, on TV, and on streaming services. And the impact on those of us who actually make all this content has been profound. When I created Adam Ruins Everything in 2015, we pitched it to truTV, TNT, TBS, Discovery, and HBO. But today, all those buyers have consolidated into a single entity, HBO Max. With fewer employers competing for our labor, they can more easily hold down our wages and set onerous terms for our employment. For example, despite unprecedented growth and record profits, my union has found that median pay for TV writer-producers is nearly the same as it was in the 90s, 30 years ago. And this problem affects every worker in our industry. Because the companies unilaterally control the schedules of so many movies and shows, crew members are now being forced to work longer and longer hours, sometimes working 18 hours a day, 6 days a week, for months on end for very low wages. Actors find themselves trapped in exclusive contracts that prevent them from pursuing other work, even when they're not shooting. And after Disney merged with Fox, they used their market power to end back-end participation, preventing show creators and producers from sharing in the profits of the work they created. Now, the corporate lawyers will say that all of this, the layoffs, the cuts to worker pay, are good because they reduce prices for consumers. But if there's a single example of one of these media mergers reducing prices in any way, I would love to see it. In fact, a recent report by the Writers Guild lays out the truth that every media viewer already knows. Today, we pay more than ever for less choices. Finally, the economic power wielded by this tiny group of companies means that they control what we as creators are allowed to say and what messages the public has access to. My show was well known for telling the uncomfortable truth about difficult subjects, but the only time we were censored by our network was when we did an episode called Adam Ruins the Internet about monopolistic consolidation in the cable industry. And after it aired, Time Warner pulled the episode from reruns and streaming because they were worried it would anger AT&T and jeopardize the merger. And I know that my story is not the only one. Without competition, these companies have no incentive to take a chance on new stories from emerging creators. Instead, they pack their services with cheap, repetitive content based on IP they already own because there's nowhere else to go. So, I know I'm getting the light, so I'll wrap it up. My earnest plea is that the next time our governmental agencies review a merger, they ask the question, whose voices will this merger silence? Which ideas will never reach our ears? Whose stories will the public never get to see? It's long past time to recognize the harm that mergers like these do to workers, to creators, and to the viewing public. Our media ecosystem and the workers who make their living within it must have fair competition to survive. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Adam. Had the chance to watch your show when it was still on and enjoyed it. Next, we have Marshall.